So, Bea, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I always like to start with why is it you do the work you do? Like what,
Mm,
why the passion towards helping people with people pleasing?
yeah. Like so many of us, the whole hero's journey thing of I spent most of my life awash in codependent perfectionist and people pleasing habits and didn't realize it, which I think is the case for most people.
Mm,
And I spent my whole life really detached from my body in what in the somatics world we call functional freeze, but I had no idea. And I was just sort of doing what so many of us do, moving through life, getting the accolades and the degrees and the jobs and the wow, but feeling really frozen inside,
mm,
right? And not knowing how to relate to others other than martyring, fixing, giving, caretaking. And my sense of authenticity, autonomy, intentionality, presence, mindfulness retreated further and further into the frozen tundra of my
mm,
own nervous system. And when I finally sort of caught on to what was going on, my whole life changed.
hmm.
And I left medicine. I left practicing Western medicine. I really shifted everything to focus on sharing what helped me reclaim my joy, reclaim my joie de vivre that was like so far gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the nutshell version.
Okay. Is there a difference or what is the difference between people pleasing and codependency? I mean, are those interchangeable? Or are they just connected? What's the,
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's so much overlap. And I think the terms are so outmoded,
mm,
right? They're so thrown around, they've kind of come to mean nothing and or have been so associated with like, I don't know, I just never connected in with the terms while
okay.
fully living them out. And so I actually came up with, right, I was like 100% living it. So I
Right.
came up with a new term, which is
Okay.
emotional outsourcing.
Okay. So explain that.
Yeah. So emotional outsourcing, and I trademarked it.
Okay.
Aha. I was very proud of myself for that one. Very New York move. Emotional outsourcing is when we chronically and habitually source our sense of the three essential human needs: safety, belonging, and worth from everyone and everything outside of ourselves instead of from within
Mm,
to our own detriment.
okay. And so anybody who's codependent or people pleasing or whatever, that's effectively what they're doing. Getting
I
those
would
needs met
say
from everywhere but within.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And having an imbalance, right? Because as humans, we need to co-regulate our nervous systems. We need to connect with each other. We're pack animals. And I think
Right.
that's one of my favorite things of being a human is connecting with others. But when we are in emotional outsourcing, it's the only way we get that emotional nourishment, right? It's the only way we can find regulation, right? And so the scales really tip out of our favor.
Yeah, and it seems like the risk, right? Things are at stake. How somebody else
Yeah.
feels about us or thinks about us or reacts to us or, like there's
Right.
this danger if we're not keeping people pleased.
Pleased. Right. So how can you be authentic? You can't. You gotta
Right.
you gotta be who you think they want you to be.
Okay. So talk a little bit about how this shows up. Like, some people are going to be listening to this and say, "Oh, totally, that's me." Like they're
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
know this, right? But
Yeah.
like, what are the various kinds of ways this shows up in somebody's life? And I don't know if you have thoughts about how this might show up in relation to sex.
Sure. I mean, I think it shows up across the board. And I think that's a really important thing to note from jump. Historically, in the literature, when we read about codependency, and I put it in air quotes because it's not in the DSM, it's not diagnosable, right? There's only one, the Holyoke Index, there's only one tool that's not really substantiated. It's not like an evidence based diagnosis. I'm sure,
Yeah.
anyway. So, how does it show up across the board? Historically, we really only talked about it in romantic relationships. Is
Mm,
really how most people thought about it, think about it. It can show up with your parents or your kids, your friends, at work, and oh my God, absolutely during sex,
mm.
right? So doing things you don't want to do to try to get someone to like think you're down or think you're cool or think you're sexy. Um, Using, there's a lot of tit for tat in codependent thinking because there's a lot of scorekeeping,
Oh,
right? Because how others think of you, right? Whether they think you're valuable, worthy, good, important, is so much more important than what you think, feel, and believe. We're always keeping that score, right? Like, oh, he liked dinner. Okay, good. Right? Oh, I
yeah,
chose the right movie. Like my clients feel a lot of stress around like picking the restaurant, picking the movie, right? These really, it's like in the quotidian BS of life, right? It's in that minutia of
yeah,
worrying someone's gonna have a bad time, and that's your fault, your responsibility. You need to put yourself out to fix them and their feelings. And so, of course, during sex, we one would from emotional outsourcing really be completely other focused versus
right.
focusing on your own pleasure, your own sensuality, your own joy, your own connection with your own body.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems to me it's going to relate to both the reasons you might have sex in the first place, for your
Yeah,
partner, or
for
because I
sure.
should, or because it's a tally mark, and
Right.
what you're doing in the sex itself, right? Like,
Of
is my
course.
partner happy? Is my partner happy?
Right, right.
Yeah.
Are they into it? And then the other part of this, when we then bring in the nervous system and somatics or body based practices, is that so often when we're living in emotional outsourcing, we are wildly disconnected from our soma, from our body, right?
Mm.
We are not embodied, meaning we are not present within. So when I work with clients in a 6-month program. At the beginning, I'll say, so how do you feel about that? And they'll say, well, I really think he's such a jerk because he said this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
cool, 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 cool. Not a feeling. I love you. No one's judging you here. Welcome. You're in the right place, but not a feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And then at the end of this 6 months, how do you feel about that? Well, there's a soft silver rumbling in my belly and my toes feel really purple. Right. And we have this somatic presence through sensation in the body.
Mm.
That's fully absent when you are living for others, when you're not present in your own experience of life because it doesn't matter. Or it was really stupid at some point in childhood, in your teen years, in your 20s, to be present in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. You had to learn to. I was going to ask, like, what your thoughts are for how people end up this way, with these coping strategies or ways of being.
Yeah. So I think it really is mirror neurons, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
modeled for us. We see parents who have this coping mechanism, other caregivers who have these coping mechanisms. I think when we look really broadly at our socialization and our conditioning, especially in white settler colonialism, in the patriarchy and late stage capitalism, of course we relate to self this way,
Mm.
right? Capitalism saying especially to human socialized as women, your body is a problem, right? It's wrong and bad, right? It needs to be whiter and thinner, but stronger. I mean, could you just play America
Yeah.
Ferrera's just her whole
Sexier, but not
talk?
sexy at all, right?
How
Not,
dare you?
yeah,
Don't be a slut,
right.
but be sexier. Bigger boobs, but not that big.
Right.
Right. Come on.
Yeah.
Right. And so we can play that out how we just become detached from ourselves as animals, as selves,
Hmm.
right? As people who are worthy of love and care just how we are.
Yeah.
Because we hear the opposite, 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 right?
You mentioned people that maybe learned it was not safe to be in their body growing up. Like, when I think about my clients, some people have come into being people pleasers specifically because there was danger, right? Not
Yeah,
keeping somebody happy in their home or whatever, right? There's this
sure.
risk that they're vigilant about. But other people just sort of got so much praise for being
Yes,
people pleasing. Like, it doesn't always have
for
to be this
sure.
trauma. It could just be I got rewarded for whatever it was, right? It seems like it can be the carrot or the
Totally.
stick. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, my sister and I were in the gifted and talented program and did the like Johns Hopkins summer nerd program every year. And like definitely those straight A's And like, I think we started taking the SATs in like 8th grade. And
Wow.
we did, it was like part of the public school.
Yeah.
And yeah, the primacy of the mind was reinforced again and again and again and again. So fast forward to sex, are you in your body or in your brain? When your brain gets you love, gets you a plus, gets you care, gets you like a trip to Pizza Hut. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
right. What do you, you're not a fool. You're no idiot. You're going to stay in your brain. Come on now.
So I mean, obviously, I totally get the importance of being in our body in sex because it's a very physical act with a partner, and we want to connect to pleasure and all this stuff. But could you speak a little bit to the importance of being in your body in the rest of your life? Like, why does this
Yeah.
connection to soma specifically matter so much?
Yeah. So this thing happens, right? Where we disconnect from the body and we put everything through the lens of our brain as though it was like pure information,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Again, when we go back to realizing where our socialization and conditioning live, it lives in our thought patterns, right? It lives in our mindset. It lives in our habitual thoughts in the neural grooves of that are most transited. I mean, that's, because science, right?
Right.
And so that's not to say the body and what we experience through the body is somehow pure and not impacted by socialization. Come on now, let's not be silly gooses. um, but there is a profound wisdom that lives within the body,
Mm,
and when we can access it, we can gain a kind of clarity and presence and mindfulness that I don't know how as humans we can otherwise access, right? And the body can help us to come to realizations that the mind cannot. On a show about sex, let's also just talk about the pure pleasure of being a mammal who is living in their mammal,
right.
right? Like, wow, bodies are incredible,
Yeah.
right? And so often we're living in tension patterns, right? In tightness, in constriction that comes from being disconnected from our bodies, right? You see on social media like emotions live in your body and it becomes this sort of vague clickbaity kind of thing,
Hmm.
or you hear silly things like anger's in your, I don't know, toenails or whatever. I'm just going to say something ridiculous. But what we know is that emotions do have an impact on our body through tension, right? And so we can end up living with pain, with discomforts, and with an inability to shift and change because of our habitual relationship to life. Let me pause. That was super sort of vague and philosophical, and get practical.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
practical gals, you and I. So I didn't realize that when I was like on a couch or sitting next to someone, I would sort of contort my body to like try to make them more comfortable.
Mm,
Like I would sit kind of funky, like leaning or weird, and I'd have pain or discomfort, but I would just kind of like not want to move. What I later realized through somatic experiencing, that it was connected to an attachment wound
mm.
and a fear that if I moved, I'd disturb the moment and they'd leave. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So I could then go in and bring love and care and compassion and healing to that part of me that was holding that wounding, that pain, that worry, and could soothe her,
Hmm.
right? And bring her from being in exile back into the fold and reconnect. And in that process, liberate my physical body
Yeah.
to sit differently,
Well, and I think about
right?
so many people that are putting up with things in sex that either are painful or uncomfortable or just not pleasing, and they're just sort of
Sure.
disconnected from that. And
Right.
they could they could use that information,
They
right?
could really use that information. And yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So could you, I mean, I'm having this thought, it's sort of out of order, but could you speak a little bit to the benefits to our partners when we stop people pleasing? When we start to connect with ourselves and our body and
Yeah.
advocate for that, take up
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. less resentment. I think I would say that's the number one thing.
Mm,
So, healthy boundaries are resentment prevention, saying no when you mean it, saying yes when you mean it, setting limits. I'm not available for. God, those are like magic words.
yeah.
I want to hand deliver to every woman on the planet. Ma'am, here's your daily dose of I'm not available for that.
Yeah.
Um, because it changes the way we relate to self and others when we have this capacity to say, nah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And what it does is when I can trust someone's no, I can trust their yes.
Right. Right. I talk to my clients
It's,
about this all the time.
oh, I love that. Oh, that's great. Yeah, if I can trust you that you're saying, I don't want to do that, but I'll do this.
Yeah.
Whether it's about cooking dinner or having sex, it opens up a world of honesty,
Yeah.
right? And that honest communication is what deepens relationships,
Yeah.
you
And I
know?
feel like people want, most people, almost everybody wants a true partner, right? They want to know who this
Yeah,
person is. They want connection with that self. They don't want somebody just telling them what they want to hear or keep them
right.
happy. And it's like, where are you in that? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, right. The other thing when we regulate our nervous systems and come into presence and embodiment is that we connecting with our capacity to respond instead of react.
Mm.
Right. So when we're dysregulated, when our nervous system is, for lack of more elegant terms, a hot mess, which it is for so many of
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
we're building up tension, building up, because we're not saying no, we're not saying I don't want to, we're not saying. And then Vesuvius is gonna Vesuvius. Like, what do you want? You hold a beach ball underwater long enough. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought I told you. What do I want her to do? Same on the other side is what's called dorsal collapse or dorsal vagus in the nervous system, which is no, I'm fine. No, it's fine. Whatever you want. Nope, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, no, whatever you want. And then you're clearly obviously annoyed. You're right. Things don't feel good.
Right.
Things feel like you spoke to disconnected.
Right.
And both of those kinds of it's interesting to think of the dorsal as reactivity, but it is in its way. It's the nervous system saying, I friggin' can't anymore. Forget
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah. I'm out of here.
I'm
Right.
out of here. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
playing dead. I'm a little possum playing possum.
Yeah.
And either extreme, which aren't that extreme, we see them all day, every day, right? Um, Lead to inauthentic connection because there's inauthentic communication. Um, yeah, and like you said, that deepening is just not possible when the
Yeah.
other person's not actually in the room.
So how does somebody achieve this? How do they regulate their nervous system,
Yeah.
do this work? And I'm thinking sort of especially if maybe it's harder if it has been unsafe in your body for some reason. Like that's
Yeah.
probably a bigger hurdle than I'm just not used to it or it's unfamiliar,
Yeah.
unpracticed. But like, what's the basic roadmap for somebody to go from this emotional outsourcing to, wow, I am in
I'm
myself.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say if your body has been the site of trauma and this feels all too overwhelming, please start with a licensed therapist, like a for reals licensed therapist. I'm trained in somatic experiencing, which is a 3-year program. Get someone who EMDR, right? Someone who really knows what they're doing with trauma.
Yeah.
And please start there.
Yeah.
Please,
Okay.
please. Great.
Good disclaimer. Right.
Always, always, always. I mean, again, we are who we are.
Right.
We have our training. So then the DIY version. One of the biggest things we lose in this process of emotional outsourcing is our capacity to hear and trust our own voice. Wants, needs? Nah, I don't have them.
Right.
Never had them. Don't know
Right.
what they never
No
met them.
idea what I want.
What
Yeah.
are you talking about? Get out of here with that wants and needs. So we need to start, and this is going to sound so banal, and I know it, but it's the right place to start. What do you want for breakfast?
Yeah.
Right. Because how often do we ask ourselves, oh, even one step further, what do you want for your first morning beverage? Oh, I don't know. I just reach for coffee that we start the pot overnight. I just drink it. Okay. And you might end up drinking it, but why don't you pause, take a little breath, feel your feet on the ground, and ask your body, do I want coffee? And if you've been drinking it since you're 14, it's going to scream yes. And that's
Right.
great. But now you know what your body screaming yes feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it might say, like, nah, girl, can I get some water, please? Please, come on. Hydrate before you dehydrate.
Yeah.
But now you're starting to have an internal rubric, right? So when your partner says, hey, I'd really like to have sex tonight, you can listen to your body, not to, well, we have to get up early and I have a long day and like, not to completely discredit the stories, obviously, but pause and listen to the animal, listen to the body
Yeah.
and see what's available through that. And then, expand from morning beverage and just start to slowly expand it out.
Yeah.
I'll make the note because I can imagine your listeners are nerds, which is my highest compliment. We start with something so quotidian and banal and like throwaway for a very smart nervous system based reason. We don't want to activate your nervous system and flood you with
Hmm.
freak out chemicals,
Right.
adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol. We want you to stay chill while you're doing this practice. So I wouldn't recommend you start remembering what you want by saying, like, oh, my mom's calling. Should I answer? Oh my gosh, no. Do not start listening to your body around something that's potentially like
Yeah. Right.
anxiety inducing. Start with your beverage, start with like, what do I want to wear? And like, listen to your body, not just your brain stories,
Mm.
and keep it real simple.
Yeah.
Like,
It's funny.
wow.
I start with food with my clients all the
Yeah.
time. Like, what do you
Oh, I
want for
love it.
dinner? And sometimes I'll have two people that are people pleasing, right? They're both like, whatever you want. No, no, you. And I sort of, I invite them. They
Yes.
each have to say what they want first.
Yeah.
And they can't just one person goes and the other one goes, oh, that's fine. It's
Right.
like, what would you
Yeah.
have if you were by yourself? What would you
Yep.
choose?
Yeah. I like to
Yeah.
do the 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, like
One,
rock,
two,
paper,
three.
scissors.
Pizza, sushi. Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And so from there, really starting to bring these tiny moments of awareness and presence throughout your day and gamify it, right? Like, oh, at the top of the hour, what are 3 things I can feel?
Mm.
Okay, I can feel my hair. I can feel this new sweatshirt has that like new sweatshirt feel. I can feel my water bottle. It's nice and cool.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not, again, what do I feel in my body when I think of something complex?
Yeah.
Keep it. You might like this. I think baby steps are way too big and we shouldn't be advising people to take them. I think it is approaching malpractice. I think we should be because what's that? 2.5, 3 feet,
Yeah.
3 inches
Right.
on the average newborn. That's a lot. That's big. We need to take newborn baby kitten steps,
Ah,
tiny, tiny steps. Right. And that's how we don't flood the nervous system. And we
yeah.
keep ourselves actually present in ventral vagal, the safe and social part of the nervous system, where we can be aligned with self and we can keep growing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love the invitation to just sort of like, wait, take a breath, take a pause, check in. What do I, to build that practice into almost every
Yeah.
question you're asked or every choice you're
Yeah.
facing.
Right. And so then when you're in bed with your partner, it becomes so much easier to listen to your body
Yeah.
because you've been doing it about Cheerios. You've been doing it about boots and, like the little things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything I forgot to ask you that you wanted to talk about?
I think it's helpful to share a tool to calm the nervous system
Okay.
because until we get to that place of embodiment where we are less reactive, we're reactive. I mean, And people find this one really helpful. So I'll make it really quick. If
Okay.
you're feeling yourself getting revved up and you want to calm down your nervous system, you do the opposite of what the nervous system is doing. It's saying, run, fight, punch, lions are coming, punch them in the snout. When lions are coming, you're not going to you're outside your prefrontal cortex, the empirical executive function part of the brain. And so we bring ourselves back into logical mind. The easiest way I find is counting. And so most listeners have hands. So let's count them. So you're going to take your thumb and nice and slow and steady, when you feel like you're going to rip someone's face off and maybe like throw it out the window, instead of doing murders, tap your thumb to your first finger and say 1, your second finger and say 2, your third and say 3, your fourth and say 4. And then you come back and you just keep going and going until you feel your body calming down. You can do this not just if you're angry, but if you're anxious, if you're worried, if you're ruminating. So rumination, right? We're in that amygdala dominant. So we need to come back into the prefrontal, count something. And I find fingers to be really easy. It's also bringing in a patterned movement, which we know does the same thing. And then if you're feeling checked out, if you're like, wait, what? I just got overwhelmed and I don't. You can do the same thing, but fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3.
Oh, okay.
1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Because sometimes we need that too. We need a little get up and go in the nervous system.
Like pull back in
to presence. Yeah. When you're floating off in space. Yeah. You can come back that way.
Cool. Well, thank you. So please tell people about your program, where they can find you, what you've got available.
Yeah. So my program is called Anchored. It is a 6-month exploration of somatics, the nervous system, thought work, mind work. And it is my baby. I love this program so much. If you're looking for something shorter, I have a 12-week program called the Somatic Studio. And you can learn more about those on my website, Beatriz, Beatriz, Albina.com. And right, hold on 1 second. I need to get to okay, there it is. All right, I'm going to restart.
Okay.
And I have a special treat just for your listeners.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, so fun. So if you head to my website, again, beatrizalbina.com/better sex, you can download a suite of nervous system orienting exercises, inner child meditations, all sorts of little meditations and treats. They're downloadable. They're free just for you and your audience to say, thank you for having me here. Thank you for listening. So I hope your listeners go get that. And
I do too.
Yeah. And if you're liking what you're hearing, my podcast is called Feminist Wellness. It's free everywhere. And I have a book coming out end of September 2025 called End Emotional Outsourcing. So
congratulations. That's a big project.
It's been a lot. And I'm so glad it's almost hitting the shelves.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yay. Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.